Alrighty, we're here in Piedmont, North Carolina with these two awesome fellas here. If you want to just introduce your guys' selves and where we're at.
Of course, my name's Caden, and
I'm Patrick.
And we're here at Cable Family Farm. We're at the main farm here where we have our market garden, and we also raise our egg layers, and we raise shiitake mushrooms as well. But yeah, we're going to show you around, and hopefully you can learn something. So where we're standing here, I mean, this was all just like mowed grass. It wasn't even grass really, it was just weeds. It was mowed short for years. Um, and so when we acquired this property, uh, learned how to, I got into no-till kind of market gardening, and so we started, putting down compost and wood chips in the pathways, and we started with the cardboard to suppress the weeds, and we shortly found out that that wasn't going to work in our scenario.
How come?
So it's just kind of hard to source, and it's a lot more labor intensive. And like if it's windy, the cardboard will blow away. So it was kind of a mess in the beginning, but we were trying to figure out how to do it, without tilling and doing conventionally, right? And so we kind of learned the trade a little bit more and found some tools that would help us get there. And yeah, so we initially start out by kind of smothering all the weeds with kind of your black silage tarps, right? And let's see, where we
So after that, let's say we're starting a new area in the garden, right? We've been finishing up the back corner over here. What we'll do is we'll put the silage tarp out. We'll get all the weeds dead under there. So we're starting with a clean slate, which is giving you the same kind of cardboard effect of there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to lay down compost, about 4 inches of compost to start a new bed. We're going to shape it up real nice. And then if there's ever any weeds, we're going to mulch the pathways in the beginning to suppress the weeds, and then we're going to use a tarp if any areas get out of control. So that's how we manage our weeds and stay on top of that.
Whenever you guys started out with the compost, did you make that yourself or find a local source? How'd you go
Yeah,
about
so you have to use a good bit of compost. Like you said, it's like 4 inches thick per bed. So we did have to buy that initial compost, but certified organics, locally made, right? Um, but yeah, our kind of goal is to just have to do that initial bit of compost and then start making our own and just rely on that and cover crops to build our fertility. And, we're still working on that.
And then when you first started to, well, I guess how do you even strategize around it all too? Because I know there's so many options to plant this or that, and especially whenever you only start with so much surface area.
Right. Yeah. So my thing, like there's so many things you can plant, so many varieties as well. But what we tried to go for is just plant what we know people like. You know, sometimes people would just try to plant these crazy varieties, the crazy colors of things. But we tried to go with what people like and do that well first, and then kind of branch out from there, right? So, you have anything else on that?
Well, so our market garden is, a year-round thing. So in the early spring, we're going to have different crops in the summer and in the fall, um, and over winter even. And so with having 80 beds, it allows us to have room to be cover crop in areas that we need to put nutrients in, and then we have plenty of room to grow as well at the same time. You want to go through some of the crops that some of the spring, fall, or spring,
Yeah,
summer, fall?
so right now we're kind of going like out of our summer crops into the fall crops. So right now it's a lot of okra, cucumbers. Let's see, we just took out our
Peppers.
yep, a lot of peppers, eggplant, and we'll get to see that here in a second. But we're kind of transitioning into the fall stuff. So we over here we have like a bunch of beets and carrots, and that's a big seller for us. And then we also, all your brassicas, so like your cabbage, broccoli, kale, collard, stuff like that.
Got bok choy and kohlrabi behind us here.
Yep. So it's constantly changing, and we try not to leave. We have some empty beds right here, but we try not to leave a bed empty for more than a day.
Hmm.
So
And then how? I'm assuming just one row. That's a bed.
that's one bed. So our beds are 30 inches. That's kind of the standard width for market gardens, and then ours are 48 feet long. It's just kind of what we decided out initially. Uh, but yeah, by having everything the same, it makes it really easy, more efficient, like to flip a bed, and you know exactly how many transplants that go in that bed. Um, the spacing's always the same. So
And that helps us do things efficiently enough to be able to manage it, because it can get out of hand if you're not strategic about it, because it's a lot of labor. So we have very fine-tuned systems, and we do the same thing with every bed, and we stay on top of that. So
And then at the beginning, whenever you were just starting out,
right,
what did you use to learn all of this?
yeah. So it was kind of a variety of things. I mean, a lot of YouTube, a lot of different books from uh, growers that that I looked up to or whatever that I thought were doing a good job, and a lot of it was just figuring it out myself and having these failures and learning from them, right? And yeah, I mean that's really where the learning came from.
Well, because that's why I asked, because I've seen some of these tools like this one, which
Yeah,
I've never seen this before.
absolutely.
So what is this?
So this is a broad fork. I'll kind of show you how we use it. So right, we never we don't till, so we're no till. But if you just never till, if you have compacted soil, um, it's not going to change very much over time, you know. So to loosen that soil without like inverting it and kind of destroying the soil life, right? So we use this tool, and you'll just kind of loosen the soil like that. That's all you do. We'll do that about every foot per bed, and we do this. We do this pretty much before every flip, but eventually this tool will become kind of irrelevant, right? Because once we get our soil to a certain looseness, then we don't have to worry about it anymore.
You
Right?
said every flip, so that means after like you harvest one and then you
Right.
do a new plant.
Right. So we took squash out of here in these two beds, and then we broad forked it, and it's ready to plant something else. So that's the kind of terminology there.
Okay.
Flip a bed.
and the idea here is this is considered minimal disturbance. So as he said, like tilling completely flips the soil, so you're restarting that structure every single time.
Yeah.
When you till it. So with this, we're never flipping it over, so that structure can build, and those organisms can stay alive and keep the soil alive and healthy.
Yeah.
So
Right.
And then I guess if we can go to this third bed, because I'm
Yeah.
always curious to hear on how you go about the spacing and planting everything. Because I see there's 3 rows
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
this inside here.
So we planted this. What was it? Yesterday?
yep,
2 days.
yesterday
2 days ago.
2 days.
Right. So this is bok choy. Half the bed's bok choy and half the bed's kohlrabi. Probably need to water it in here soon. But yeah. So each each plant has its like own, you know, desired size. You want to harvest it at, right?
Hmm.
And depending, you can harvest certain things smaller if that's what your market wants, right? Or you can let it get bigger. Um, in the market garden, usually you can plant things more intensively, like closer together, and still get, a good sized crop, right? Um, so this here, bok choy and kohlrabi, it has like the same spacing requirements. That's why we planted it together.
And then for these lines, this is just to
Yeah,
show, I guess, what are the lines, the purpose for that?
right. So we have a set of strings that we use. So we string it up every time we flip a bed, right? Because over time, if you didn't put the string down, like the bed can start to go one way or the other. And, I really like to have straight lines and everything be square, right? And it makes it easier to plant, right?
Yeah.
Because you just know, like, when you're planting that where the edges are.
And then now where we're standing at, because I see there's little pockets in between these two. Are you doing anything between these?
No, so these are just our pathways. This is where we walk. So we try not to step on the beds, right? Because we don't want it to compact the soil. Um,
It's the same idea with like a tractor going over ground.
Right.
Same thing as walking on it.
Yeah.
Just gonna-
Okay.
and so we just wood chip the pathways. We think that's better than leaving the soil bare, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of breaking down and feeding the rows beside it, and just supporting the soil life, and kind of minimizes our compaction, I would think, just by dispersing our weight. But definitely.
And then in terms of just tracking everything, because we have 2 beds here that you just mentioned you just finished.
Uh-huh.
You just mentioned you just planted these.
Right.
these seem to be more
Exactly.
ahead of the process yet. How are
Right.
you managing all this? Is there a spreadsheet you've got going on, or?
Yeah, so I'd like to say we have it all planned out, but it really takes a lot of experience to be able to make a spreadsheet. I've done it before, but make a spreadsheet and be able to stick to that plan because it's constantly changing, right? The weather has a lot to do with it. Like we had tomatoes in those 10 beds over there, and we had to take them out just because it rained for 2 weeks straight, right?
Did it just kill the whole harvest of that?
Pretty much, like the tomatoes will split, they're not as good, and they'll get foliar diseases and stuff like that. But
Because that's another interesting thing too about agriculture is weather dependent on when you think of droughts. But then I remember on the farm I worked on in Pennsylvania, he mentioned how it rained for nearly a month straight, and so
oh yeah,
that is he. It makes sense. It's arguably worse to have flooding like that than it is to have a drought because it
right.
just destroyed everything.
Especially if you have some irrigation, then you'd rather be a little dry than really wet for the most part. By having loose soil and high organic matter in your soils, you can kind of uh, be on either side of that and be fine. But
It has really good drainage, and then it also has the ability to hold the water if it's
mhm,
not getting enough. So that
Yeah.
comes back to the structure with all the roots we leave in the ground and everything that's building up in there
and that
because we're
just
not tilling it.
gets better. So like the beds that we built first, they're a lot more. They hold on to water a lot better. It seems like, and um, even if it rains a lot, they're gonna drain good.
Should we go walk? I'm
Yeah,
curious to see what the first bed is then.
yeah, absolutely.
What are these for?
Yeah, so these kind of hold up our peppers. I don't know if this is the best way. We're still trialing like how is the best way to string them up, right? Because they only get so tall. Tomatoes you have to use T-posts and
Yeah.
weave them, but peppers we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to do that, and we just have them tied with some string here, and it seems to be working pretty good, but makes it easy to harvest that way.
And then I guess whenever too you come out here every day,
Uh-huh.
do you have a certain checklist of things that you go through in your head to make sure everything's good, or do
Right,
you go by
yeah.
that?
So we have like kind of our routine chores, right? So we have to water the greenhouse. We have any like direct seeded stuff. We got to make sure it's watered, so we can get good germination. And then picking. So we pick like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So after all those things are done, taking care of the egg layers, whatnot, um, then we can kind of start on the projects and just go and list a priority, right? And so that could be planting a bed, that could be taking something out,
Building new beds as we've been
yeah,
doing recently. So
right. Putting mulch down, whatever it might be, and that changes every day. So
Yeah.
you're constantly thinking about it, right? And what is the next thing? What makes the most sense? And that's where experience comes in,
Hmm.
Um,
How long does a bed take to make? Like just a brand new bed?
yeah. So, well, like just from straight grass, you have to tarp it from, uh, in the summer you could tarp it for a few months, but it takes a lot longer if it's colder. So you're talking about probably 6 months to kill all the weeds, all the grass, and then to build the bed, it really doesn't take long. So most of your time is in, you know,
The waiting.
getting rid of the permanent grass there.
That's another thing that I'm trying to get folks, consumers, to really understand is just the time aspect of it all. Not even
Oh
to just
yeah.
grow. You just mentioned just to set up. Someone
Oh
definitely does not
yeah.
realize that at all. And then whenever say you plant this plant,
hmm
how long before you could have your first harvest?
Right. So something like peppers, we start in the greenhouse, and so they'll be in there for probably 6 weeks, and we have to start them like when it's colder out, right? So we can plant them early, and um, so take like 6 weeks in there, and then once it's warm enough to plant them out here, you're probably talking about another 50, 60 days before you get the first pepper,
Yeah.
Um,
Because I'm trying to just think on just for the folks out there. I mean, I know they could just start out just having a simple garden in the backyard, but
right,
say they might have interest, they have some land like right here, and they
right.
might see the potential of growing this just any I guess any idea of how much they should potentially look to, budget for?
Yeah, I would say spend as least as possible, really. You can, we bought compost, and that was probably one of the biggest costs up front, right? But you could just start with uh, increasing the fertility in your soil just by cover cropping. That takes longer, right? But that's the lowest cost. Seed doesn't cost very much.
Probably add a couple tools.
Yeah, the tools are probably another one of the most expensive things, and you know, it's really easy to buy tools that you don't need.
Depends on your scale, right?
Yeah, so it depends on your scale. So I really tried to be, careful and buy like broad fork, a nice cedar, things that I knew that we were gonna need.
And then for seeds, where did you buy that online or somewhere local?
Yeah, so I buy them online. I try to get them from, a couple different reputable sources. We try to buy pretty much strictly organic seed, um, just because they've been grown in like an organic system, and maybe they're a little bit better suited for our application, right? But yeah, we try to get seeds from several different sources, but
The consumers, I mean, I can understand why they do, but they have this
right.
huge focus on sprays and they want them banned immediately, which is good. Like, I do agree
Yeah.
that those aren't good, but you have to understand. I worked on a farm and they had strawberries,
Yeah.
and about 1 out of every 10 that I picked we could sell because
Right.
the rest were getting eaten by worms and bugs and all kinds of other pests. I completely understand if you're managing thousands of acres, why you spray that.
Oh yeah.
Consumers have no idea, again, what it takes to grow produce because you're fighting with so many different elements, but including all of the pests, and they love everything that you guys grow.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's very, and it's just very frustrating too because you're doing all the backbreaking work of actually planting everything, but then the more backbreaking work of actually harvesting everything, and
Mhm.
then again, 1 out of every 10, that's not very good at numbers right there.
And those those farms that are set up like that, they can't just switch overnight. So we
Yeah,
can't expect that, even if we believe something to be true.
yeah.
They can't just turn around completely. So
Well, and then the last thing on that too, I find funny is people have focused on glyphosate this whole time, and then they learn how there's so many other chemicals that are far worse. It's like there's thousands of chemicals that you
That's
could be
just the
used.
popular one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's by far the most popular, but there are thousands of other chemicals that are
Yeah.
far worse than glyphosate that people can get around and use. But then also they talk about Europe. Europe uses sprays too, and so to me again, that's why I always say shake the hand that feeds you because
Right.
it's very easy. Even from my perspective, I still don't know anything. I feel like I don't know anything about agriculture, but I still know like a tiny bit. And it's very easy to see through what they try to say online because it's clear that they still have never talked to anyone like you guys or gone out and seen
Right.
it for themselves.
And another
Yeah.
thing on that is like people don't like things to be sprayed, right? But agriculture in general is not a natural thing, It's not natural to have straight rows of the same exact crop. Um, so
Yeah, I mean, in the context of history, the most of our history of humanity, we weren't farming, we were hunting.
right, exactly. So, it's really hard to we try to keep it as natural as possible, the systems, but it's hard to grow something that a bunch of other things want to eat as well. A lot of times we'll be asked if we're certified organic, right? And we're not. But I would say what we're doing is, definitely in line with the organic practices, and it's definitely beyond what you have to do to be certified organic. Um, but with being certified organic comes a lot of like paperwork and like a lot of record keeping.
Yep.
And, you know, being like it's just a three-man operation and, we're still expanding, like we don't have time to really do that. We just have to trust that we can portray to our customers that what we're doing is organic.
Has that steered away any customers whenever you've told them that you're not certified, but you still technically are?
Not really, no.
Okay, because I'm always curious just too on just the whole labeling aspect. It's very easy to latch onto those, and so if you might hear like, "Oh, he's probably just lying," I didn't know if
Yeah,
that ever
we
happens.
we've had some customers say that, we didn't grow these tomatoes or because they're too perfect, right?
and the good thing is, we sell primarily at farmers markets, so we're able to have that face-to-face conversation. So when someone says that, we can say what Caden just said, and kind of clear up the misconception. It's like, yes, we use these practices. We don't have this label on our farm, but we're using these practices, and beyond that, we're building the soil at the same time. So,
And we refer them to our socials where they can see kind of how we produce this stuff. And
Yeah, yeah.
so,
Oh, this is cool.
yeah. So the main cover crop we've been growing recent. This is our cedar. This is jank cedar. So it has this. This is the wheel, right? Um, yeah, it's super simple. You know, like I said, we don't have a tractor. This is just like a really important hand tool that we use. So like this is for carrots. This is a seed roller, right?
It's specifically for carrots?
Yeah, so carrots have really small seeds and they're like really skinny. So this is perfect for them, right? And so this will go, you know, inside the hopper. That's what this is. You can change the gears. We have more gears up here. So
This little tiny tool seems like you could.
you can plant just about anything with it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay. Um,
so it makes a place for the seed with this wheel, and then it closes it up, closes the furrow with that, and then the back wheel compresses it back down. So
What a cool design.
it's very cool.
yeah. It like we have to have it, you know.
Yeah.
Like there's no other way to plant carrots, and you know that's one of our best-selling crops. And you can't transplant carrots.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
That just doesn't work. But yeah, so it's a
How
big
many-
tool on our farm.
How many carrot seeds do you think are going in one bed here?
Yeah, so we have carrot seed every inch, 5 rows of them. So it's like 3,000 carrot seeds, right? In a market garden, you're trying to grow things out of season a lot of times, just because the demand is there to have it the whole year, right? But so like trying to find an example of that. So like tomatoes, for example. We don't have those right now, but you want to have tomatoes all year if you could, right? So you're planting them as early as possible in the greenhouse, and you want to have them as late, you know, into the fall as possible. And that can be tough with the plants because they don't want to grow in certain times of the year, right? Or they don't grow well. So
Yeah, I vividly remember whenever we had our first frost and going to farmers markets and how disappointed they were on certain crops that weren't, because we're so used to, if you only buy from a grocery store your whole lives,
oh yeah,
you are so accustomed to everything is going to be there year round, full stock, and if you're not,
right.
your day's ruined, essentially. Uh, and again, that's why I also say, you know,
Yeah.
shake the hand that feeds you, because
Yeah, and I think it's important to eat like within the season, right?
yes,
You know, so eat what's in season.
Tastes better that way too.
It tastes better. It's easier for the farmer to grow, right? And that just comes with learning when grows what time of the year, and
and the best way to find out what's in season is to go to a farmers market. Well, the ones that are doing it right, because I know
right,
farmers markets can be very
hit and miss,
hit or miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Starting out, I was talking about, you know, how you want to kind of limit the money that you spend, and you know, try to make do with what you have, you know. So we had this old carport, right? This was a carport, and then you just have to be you just have to have some ingenuity and figure out how to work with what you got. And so we turned this into a little greenhouse. It's not perfect, right? But it works for what we need at the moment.
That's what I love about agriculture. It forces you to have ingenuity.
Right.
So what all are we looking at then in here exactly?
Yeah, so these are all our fall transplants. So a lot of these are brassicas. So that's like a family of like cabbage, you know, broccoli, kale, collards, those type of vegetables. Typically what you grow in the fall. There's some onions, green onions. We have some lettuce over here, right?
And then mentioning on the best ones to plant out there whenever it's time. How do you figure? Do you plant every single one in each of these trays, or do you find the best ones and only plant those?
Yeah, so we try to plant more than enough, right? And then just choose the best looking transplants. You know, we try to do our best job to have them all look good, and you know, we're still improving each time, on our process there to get good starts. But it probably is worth mentioning that we kind of use two different ways of what would you call that? Seed starting, right? So these are soil blocks here. Let's see if I can get one out. Yeah, so that's kind of what a soil block looks like, right?
We'll make that with these. It kind of forms the blocks into that tray, and then you'll pop the seed right in there.
Right, so they're easy to like kind of take apart and transplant, right? And then we use these as well. These are wind strip trays.
Looks like much tinier surface area for these.
Right, yeah, so depending on the crop, you use a different size like transplant, right? So like onions don't need a big one. It's like the main thing is like how many plants are you putting into a bed. So like something like onions or lettuce, you have hundreds, right? Something like broccoli or cabbage, you only have like it's like 70, 72 plants in a bed.
Mm-hmm.
So they can be a little bit bigger, right? And going back to it limits the amount of time that you have to use that bed for that crop, right?
And then I guess every day, do you have a certain checklist coming in here too?
Yeah, so we kind of do our seed starting in kind of all at once. So we've done most of our fall seeding. We'll continue to do like successions of certain things. So we'll seed something if need be, but typically it's just watering the greenhouse, checking on everything, just making sure everything looks healthy, and
it's just part of that morning routine, getting the first stuff out of the way, and then before we move on to projects.
Kind of seeing what stage they're at as well. Like, are these going to be ready to plant soon, or like, how's the germination of this crop? Like, do we need to plant more of it, right? These are kind of the new egg layers that will be going into production pretty soon. I think they're like 13, 14 weeks old right now. So you can tell they're not full size quite yet, but there's about 150 here. And then we'll move these out. We have a mobile chicken coop that we kind of move around our little pasture. And so we'll switch them out with the old laying hens and probably do that here.
We do kind of a rotational grazing system here with the electric fence, as you commonly see in regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
We'll have different paddocks, and we'll continuously move them so that we're not staying in one area too long.
So you mean that in this backyard?
Right, in this area.
Yep.
And then in terms of the feed, how do you guys go about that?
Yeah, do you want to talk about the feed?
Yeah.
Well, we get our feed from a local, I guess, store, farm, distributor.
It's also locally grown and milled as well.
Right, here in North Carolina. It's a non-GMO feed. So we found that is the best option for our context. But yeah, we feed these guys pretty much every day. Let's see.
Well, I like how you said just in your context, because that's another thing consumers need to understand, is understanding context of each individual farm and ranch. When talking on the economics of everything, economics of animal feed is very challenging and costly. And so there's always going to be trade-offs, and that's what I love. For some reason, agriculture, from the consumer standpoint, you're not allowed to have trade-offs, even though that's part of life.
Right.
Even though they're looking at a cell phone that was mined in the Congo and all of that madness.
Right.
There's trade-offs with everything, but for some reason, that's what I'm trying to also understand, why all of a sudden agriculture you can't. And it's very, I don't know, that's just very challenging, to where I see, like, kind of going back to the sprays, a lot of consumers think that the farmers are just willingly poisoning our food supply as if that's what they want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get that across to them, to where it's like, no, there's a reasoning behind everything that they do. It's not some mindless decision at all. It's the complete opposite, actually.
Right.
Yeah, so with the feed, a lot of people will ask like if our feed's organic, and it's not. So we choose non-GMO. That's kind of like a middle ground. Organic feed is, extremely expensive, and there's no organic farms around us, you know, that are producing organic grain.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's not gonna be local if we buy organic, and we're gonna have to go out of our way to get it. And you know, how much better is it?
And how much are you more willing to spend too? Because at the end of
Right.
the day,
Yeah.
if they're not going to spend, then you just lost your whole operation.
Right.
Well,
And
we
they can just go find a new source or go to Sprouts or something and find
Yeah.
whatever they think is organic
Right.
too.
and yeah, we have, whereas in a grocery store they might change their prices a little bit based on that type of stuff because they're on such a big scale. Those type of decisions affect the cost of our products massively because we'd have to raise the cost of eggs a couple of dollars to make up for organic feed. Just that one decision. So
Yeah, a lot of people think the color of the egg is actually more important than it is. You know, some people will think like white eggs, you know, are not as high quality because that's typically what you get in the grocery store.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense from the consumer's standpoint when you think of most grocery store, especially the conventional eggs. They're always these large white eggs, and so
Right.
we have this association with that.
Yeah, but I mean, white egg, brown egg, green egg, blue egg, I mean, it's gonna be dependent on, you know, how it was raised, you know, on the quality of the egg, you know.
And the thing I find the funniest out of all the misconceptions about, especially chickens and eggs too,
Uh-huh.
is when people get angry about us consuming eggs. But if you were to crack an egg,
Uh-huh.
chickens will devour that immediately.
They love it's weird because like they won't mess with it unless it's cracked.
Yep.
You know, it's just
And as soon as they do, they all just
yeah.
devour it.
you should
I always
crack
find
one.
that.
You should crack one.
Here, let's
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
It's cool if I crack this one.
Yeah.
then?
Yeah.
All
You
right.
can throw it over there. I don't
Yeah.
know where they're at. Here, I'll close this.
Look at that yolk too before you put it down.
All right. Let's see here. That's the color. You see, they know. All these chickens know. Holy, look at all these. They just know.
I'm so glad these guys aren't running 300 pounds.
Oh,
They're
what
little
did he get?
dinosaurs.
Yeah, so
What did
this
you
right
get?
here, most people don't
did he get?
understand that this happens every single time if you have a cracked egg. So people can stop with their lies. I always find that so funny.
Like, crack this one too?
Yeah, you can.
This property is where we raise our pasture-raised chickens. That's kind of the alternative to the factory farm chicken houses that you see that supply a lot of the big companies like Tyson and Purdue and stuff like that. But so let's walk in here. This is where we raise the baby chicks. We get them when they're a day old, and they need supplemental heat for the first 2 to 3 weeks. So we keep them in here. We're actually gonna get chicks next week. I wish we had them, but
Tomorrow, probably.
tomorrow, dang it.
Yeah.
One day.
But so we've got a gravity water system. I'll put those bell waters in here, and so again, very low infrastructure. It's very simple setup there, and we've got these feeders behind you, same style as we have out in the pasture, just smaller. These are homemade. You can see that they're PVC, wood, and metal conduit. We had fun making those earlier this year, but the main thing I want to point out in here is our deep bedding system. So you can see that there's wood in here. There's wood shavings. So what this is it, as the chickens poop on it, it kind of starts to compost. And so that does a couple things. It heats it up, so we need less supplemental heat. So we have less energy inputs because the bedding itself is warm. And the second thing is it actually creates a living bedding, kind of like how we're building soil. This is a similar thing. It's alive with microbes and bacteria, and so the exposure to the bacteria bolsters their immune system. So when they go out here, they're good to go in the pasture, and that also means they don't need vaccines or antibiotics like a chicken raised in a factory farm chicken house would, because they're just in very poor conditions, and they have to have that just to survive the processing day. So we'll take a peek in here at them. These guys are 4 weeks old, 5 weeks old.
Yeah, they're 5,
About
a little
5.
over 5 weeks.
So looking good. Cornish cross is what you raise typically for meat birds in most settings. That's what these are. Yeah, but we can get into why this is beneficial for the chickens and for the pasture. So
Yeah, let's do that.
So, first off, like I said, the alternative to this is the factory farm chicken houses where their manure is building up, the disease pressure is very high, and that's why they need antibiotics and vaccines. So out here, they're constantly moving off of their manure, so there's no disease buildup. They're constantly on fresh grass. They have a more diverse diet with bugs and grass, and that increases or helps with the flavor of the meat as well and the nutrient density. But um,
They're able to express their like natural instincts. Like so, a chicken wants to scratch, like they'll do that little movement and they'll back up, right? And they're able to do that here, and
that keeps them stress free as well, which compared to the alternative, they're always in a high stress environment.
you can hear how quiet it is out here. I mean, they're definitely happy,
Yeah.
content.
Now, growing up, because I know this is your property, did you mention that this used to be horses?
Right. Yep. This used to be a horse pasture. There were 2 horses out here on this. It's about 2.5 acres.
And then when did you all start actually implementing using pasture-raised chickens?
So
Yeah. So this is actually you can go ahead.
this is our first year
Oh, heck yeah.
adding this, to the rotation with the market garden. So, and that's because I joined the team and we were able to utilize this land and have some more labor available. So, yeah, this is our first year. We've already been through all the pasture mostly once, and it's gone great so far. We've learned a lot, and we've sold a lot of chicken. So,
Was there any convincing for your family to want to do this or allow you to do this, I should say?
there's some conversations, but they're very on board. Like I said, my grandma used to have horses out here, so she's happy to see something going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's something she can check out and enjoy on a daily basis. And it's also strengthened my relationship with my grandfather as well, which has been a huge plus to it. We've got something to connect over now, so it's great.
Heck yeah.
It's awesome.